r/AskReddit by Reddify. What dire warning from your parents turned out to be bullshit. When we would go to the beach I would never want to get out of the water, so my mom told me that staying in the water too long would make me waterlogged. She said she could look into my eyes and see the level of water in my system. If the water raised above my iris, that meant I had to get out and let the water drain before I would drown. I believed this for far too long. I was swimming with a friend and we had a track meet the next day. Her dad hollered out to us, "Don't get waterlogged." She said we could soak up too much water and be heavier when we race the next day. That's slightly more plausible. Weigh yourself then take a bath and weigh yourself again. You will weight about 2 pounds more. That my two choices in life were either Harvard or McDonald's. Sheesh. Bit of a grey area in between those two extremes. So, can I get fries with that? You may get fries with your master's degree. Watching the TV will give you square eyes. When I was 4 years old, I took a mirror down with me whenever I went to watch TV to ensure my eyes had not gone square. 20 years later, they're still round. Complete bullshit. But if you had square eyes, square things would look round. You wouldn't be able to tell. How high are you? D&D is a satanic cult that will lure you in order to offer you up for sacrifice. Lol no. Mom. Ha. Half the time, getting a D&D group together to play is like herding cats. Everyone's schedule is different. No one can play on the same day. Someone got sick. Someone else got called into work. Well, now the weather has decided to make the roads an ice rink. No self-respecting cult operates like that. And besides, the Church of Satan is a legitimate church, not a cult. They don't do human sacrifices. And I don't think there's many people who are practitioners of Santeria who play D&D. One of the ladies at church said this to me once when I mentioned we were getting the D&D group together. And I gave her the look of, "You're ducking stupid," and said, no, not satanic, not a cult. Nerds sitting around with dice, pencils, and paper, playing a game. Grow up." As a current DM and player for a different campaign, can confirm. Who knew scheduling cult meetups was so damn difficult? Gum takes 7 years to digest. This is when I figured out adults lied. Cause I saw it in my poop. Just couldn't tell anybody. Cause I saw it in my poop. Whenever this comes up, I like to remind people of the pediatric case study of a patient who always swallowed his gum, leading to a gastrointestinal blockage. This clean out regimen produced no results after 4 days. On the 5th day, the child was brought in for manual disimpaction under conscious sedation and rectal suction biopsy. On removal of the leading edge of the fecoma, a taffy-like trail of fecal material remained in the rectum. This mass was eventually manually withdrawn and was primarily made up of chewing gum. So anyway, just because it doesn't take 7 years to digest doesn't mean you should make a habit of swallowing gum. Otherwise you'll end up like the victim of one of Willy Wonka's karmic punishments for disobeying. Willy Wonka says, "Don't swallow your gum," and you don't listen. Looks like you're getting the taffy suction from your ass. As taffy. Oompa loompa doopity dum. Don't swallow gum, or you'll plug up your bum. Edit. Oompa loompa doopity dold. Thanks for the Reddit silver and gold. My mom warned me as a kid that eating the loose pieces of dried ramen from the pack would make me deathly ill. I kept doing it with no problems. One day she said that in front of my dad when I was a teen and he just gave her this "WTF are you talking about" look. Those are the best bits. When you're homeless, you can sprinkle the seasoning in the bag. Crush the noodles in the bag and it's all the calories. But no hot water. Tastes like eating chips. If you keep wanking, you'll go blind. Thoroughly tested and definitively false. You can't eat steak that is pink on the inside. That's how you get sick. Believed this till I was about 19, until I learned that it pretty much can be as red in the center as you like, so long as it's properly seared. Turned out my mom just didn't like rare steak and felt uncomfortable making it for me and my sister. So she just lied. If the steak isn't black, it's raw, according to my mom. To be fair, I would never have got into leather work if it wasn't for my mother's inability to cook steak. that literally any college degree would be a guaranteed job. And the only way to get a job. I graduated in 2008. By the way, edit seems to be coming up a lot. I'm talking about 2008. In 2008 and before. Outside of tech, most internships didn't pay, but they were still often needed. 2008 was really the turning point on that for a lot of degrees. The list of BS degrees that don't do anything grew dramatically after that recession. The only way to get a job thing was stupid and horrible advice. If you go to college but can't afford to take an internship because you need to work a real job to finance the education, you're going to come out of college with a degree and no experience. Duck 2008. That recession left me with $130,000 in student loans, which will be with me until I finally see the mercy of death. Edit, to everyone that's asking how undergrad plus 2 years of medical school had to drop out because due to recession, couldn't get any more loans to continue with medical school. Joined workforce and at first only found jobs that paid less than $20/HR. This meant that I couldn't afford to start paying all of my loans back. Even joined the army to try and get a better and more steady income. Eventually, when I could start paying, the interest essentially was double or triple the original loan amount for some loans. Last year I paid over $10,000 in just interest. Edit 2. For those that are saying it's not the recession's fault, you is dumb. K. Sorry I offended you so deeply by blaming a global economic downturn for the lack of high-paying jobs circa 2008. Edit 3. Thanks for the gold. Anyone want to trade me for real gold, which I'll then trade for cash and then make a student loan payment with? I was always skinny growing up, even though a lot of my family is overweight. I also had no interest in physical activities. My parents always used to tell me that if I didn't exercise I'd start getting fat by the time I was 25. Jokes on them, I didn't start putting on weight until I was 30. I love your username. We can't pay $1 to go in the haunted house because they might not have a bathroom in there. What if you have to go to the bathroom? Just admit you're cheap. Dad, I'd much rather have this than my experience growing up. My dad would always complain at ticket booths about how it was free that one day, so it should be free today. Or he would ask for some discount that didn't apply to him. Or claim to have a coupon that maybe he had at one point, or is expired now. We would have escalating levels of managers come and talk to us, and he would keep doing it. He made my mom cry sometimes. I was just embarrassed. He sees it as good business sense. They think you're stupid if you don't ask for a discount. He doesn't realize this isn't a bazaar. He doesn't even come from a country where that's normal. The worst part about all this? We could afford it. My dad just hates paying for experiences and would rather go shopping or do anything else. Edit, I put it in the story because I knew it would come up, but it seems to have been glossed over by many. Again, he doesn't even come from a country where bartering/haggling is commonplace. At least not in large cities where my family is from. The most you can do is maybe ask for a bulk discount if you're at an independent stall in a market or something. Which is something I'm not against, and it doesn't hurt to ask. However, my dad takes it a step further and feels that just because he's him, he should get greater discounts/free things. When I worked in the service industry, I could never figure out why people would go through all that hassle just to save a couple of dollars. Isn't your time and dignity worth $2 whole? If I cross my eyes, they might end up staying like that. Edit, disclaimer, some comments I've received believe this to be true. I'm no expert, but did a quick Google search which also said it was a myth. Cross your eyes at your own risk. Cross-eyed. Might tell that to my kids, who offshore. I like that username. That if I used one brand of shampoo and a different brand of conditioner, that my hair would fall out. Also, when I was 5 or 6, I asked what would happen if you went the opposite way, that you turned the turn signal. My mom told me the car would explode and kill us. Not sure why she told me that hit. Because it was hilarious to watch the rising panic in your eyes as she signaled right, then twitched the wheel left. How do you know my mom so well? Immediately after telling me that she veered the opposite way of the turn signal, I still remember that cry lol. She's got a dark sense of humor. If you unscrew your belly button your bum will fall off. I did my best to avoid screwdrivers for a large part of my childhood because I lacked the willpower not to stuff them into my belly button. I was terrified at the thought of losing my bum, but intrigued by the possibility. Your comment is putting me to tears haha. But I don't understand. Were you obsessed with sticking screwdrivers in your belly button before, or after your father told you that? Not up, but I was fascinated with my belly button. I remember that I kept sticking things in there. Every rice left on your plate would be a new pimple on your face. Don't leave any food on your plate. Don't you know there's kids starving in Africa? Mom. There's kids starving in America. Africa doesn't have a monopoly on poverty. I can always make another you. I can't make another me. Turns out he can't. He got a vasectomy after I was born. Damn. That's cold. My dad got a vasectomy before I was born, but it was botched. I was a lovely surprise. I'm sure. My mom lied about being on birth control. 9 months later I was born. I didn't ever ask my parents for the story of how I was born. My dad just dropped that line on me after picking me up from school in 5th grade. Me, hey dad. Dad, have a good day at school? Me, it was alright. I mean, it's still school. Dad, just so you know. You weren't an accident. Your mom lied to me about being on birth control. Me. People who disobey their parents end up in prison. I mean, if your parents tell you don't go to prison and you disobey them. Sure. But what if they tell you to go to prison and you disobey them? Huh. What happens then, smart guy? My mom used to tell me that masturbation would turn someone into a rapist, cause your body doesn't know any different once you get addicted. Mental health and addiction played a large part in a lot of her ideas about how the world functions. 20 years on, she's doing much better. Never had a conversation with my family about masturbation. Lucky you. That hit is awkward af. Sniffling kills brain cells. I didn't sniff or snort, even during colds, because I was terrified I would lose my brain cells. Turns out my mom thinks sniffling is annoying and didn't want to hear it. Edit. Gold. I know it's worthless internet points, but I'm so happy my childhood emotional trauma has finally paid off. Thanks. Edit 2. Thank you for the silver. I feel validated. Edit 3. Platinum. Noise. Thank you, kind Redditor. Your generosity keeps my sniffles at bay. I mean, if you sniff bath salts, I guess it does. People you meet on the internet are swindlers or serial killers. Overall, the amount of people who are out there to get me and should be feared all day round was severely exaggerated. That explains some of my social problems, I guess. As a people on the internet, I'm offended. I haven't swindled or serial killed anyone in years. I've been clean for a few months. Pushers will offer you drugs to get you hooked. Not once. Not once. In 36 years of living all over the world, has anyone offered me anything unless I sort it out? I was under the impression that drugs would be easy to come by when I got old. Nope. We had to go out and find that hit. You had to ask people. There was no internet or texting to find a hookup like you lucky kids have now. You had to talk to sketchy dudes. Maybe you'll get your weed. Maybe you'll get shot. It was a toss-up. Dare really glossed over the concept of unit economics and the fact that drugs cost money. I wish they had been more honest about it. I thought friendly local dealers were going to give me free drugs every day. And it turned out to be another cruel lie like Santa Claus. It was hilarious when you heard about all of these people secretly getting young kids high with edibles when it became illegal in Co. They acted like, now that it was legal, all the bad people with the weed are going to corrupt your children at any given opportunity. Itch. Do you have any idea how expensive that hit is? Nobody is giving it out for free just to carry out an evil plot, especially one that mundane. That if I kept picking my nose my head would cave in. This can happen if you get bored of using your fingers and use an automatic drill instead. 913. Personal note. When I was a little kid, my mother told me not to stare into the sun. So once, when I was 6, I did. At first the brightness was overwhelming, but I had seen that before. I kept looking. forcing myself not to blink. And then the brightness began to dissolve. My pupils shrunk to pinholes and everything came into focus, and for a moment I understood. The doctors didn't know if my eyes would ever heal. I was terrified. Alone in that darkness. Slowly, daylight crept in through the bandages and I could see. But something else had changed inside me. Although he went in through the temple. By Aronofsky. It's a duck-in trip. Someday you're going to have a boss and you will be fired if you speak to them the way you speak to me. First, if a boss ever abused me the way you did, Mom, I'd quit. Second, I have to regularly tell my boss no and that I need her to be more reliable if I'm to do the job she wants. Not only do I still have a job, I'm constantly praised for the work I do. Edit. It was interesting reading all your stories. I had no idea this was so prevalent. Oh, and thanks for the gold. Boss. Seriously. Just wait until you get to the real world. Several years into the real world. Turns out that when I anger or disappoint my boss, they use their words and maintain control of their emotions when they talk to me about it. Oh. And expectations are clear and help is available, so I make fewer mistakes to begin with. Oh. And people who scream and lose their temper or behave abusively are fired. Well, my boss is just as passive aggressive as my mother, so it actually prepared me for that. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.